This has been the wildest episode we've had in a long time. We've talked about software, we've talked about tariffs.
What should I do first? Should I do a CRM first? Should I do a project management software?
As a small business owner, you have to think about what your constraint is.
What a tariff does is favor the producer and penalize the consumer because it gives producers protection against competition, and you and I and everybody else are going to pay for it.
Expert advice, practical tips, real-life stories. Have less stress, more time, and more money in your business. Welcome to the Cashflow Contractor.
Tell me about your new glasses.
Well, I got cataract surgery, and they replaced my lenses, and now I got to wear glasses. I don't know.
What was the point of the surgery?
That you didn't ever have to wear glasses. I know. I don't know. My wife, Diane, would be driving down the street and she'll comment on some street sign and I go, "You can read that?" She goes, "Yeah, you can't." And today's her birthday too. She's not as old as I am.
Happy birthday, Diane.
But she's close.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'm rolling with it. I mean, I've had glasses for 30 years, but I don't think you've ever seen me wear them. I don't wear them. They don't make that much difference.
I just see you doing this, just squinting and.
There are times I do, but anyway. So there you go.
I wore glasses forever, and then I got PRK surgery,
and it worked evidently.
It worked, and it changed my life. You know, the worst thing about glasses was two things: in the summer, having to go to sunglasses and not being able to see, so then getting prescription sunglasses, but then you're relying on that one pair wherever you are. And then you have to carry, whenever you go inside, you have to carry your regular glasses with you. So then you got two pairs on you at all times. And then when COVID happened, that was the last straw for me because you have to wear masks when you go inside places and then it fogs up your glasses. And oh man, that's when I was like, all right, we're doing it. And I did it through the University of Oklahoma. They're like,
practice doctors.
Yeah, they're practice doctors. I was the dummy. But it was his last surgery before becoming a surgeon. Like it was his last day as a fellow. So I was the last one before he was official. And I think he had done like 500 surgeries or something up to that point.
Somebody was number
one. I felt a little
one.
better. Somebody was number one.
And I'm wondering if number one knew that.
Yeah. Anyways, it's game changing. But your vision, I mean...
I can get by without it. I always have. I just don't realize I can't see like I used to. I can read okay. But mostly, my glasses are a fashion statement.
I know.
I want to look
cutting
cool.
Edge of fashion.
Yeah, and hip, and like a right out of the 60s. Yeah. So I don't know. Anyway.
Well, you had some questions. I don't even...
Well, there are a number of things. There are a couple of, I had something I wanted to talk about with software.
Before that, I'm going to take us off base. Listeners, I'm sorry, but this is also going to be recorded late or released late. But we're on Tuesday, April 10th here and Thursday, April 10th. You ever watch The Office?
Well,
the show with Michael and Scott?
I haven't seen it for a while.
Do you know the dinner party episode? Where Michael and Jane have Jim and Pam over for dinner, and then Dwight comes and Andy comes. Anyways,
no, I don't.
They're over for dinner, and it's the whole setup of the show is Michael and Jane have serious relationship problems, but they're hosting a dinner at their house, and they're really passive aggressive the whole time. And like you go and you see the house, and Jane's got like a workspace, like a whole room in their apartment is dedicated to her workspace, but then she also has a home office, which is separate, a different room, because she can't be creative in her office, so she has to have a workspace to be creative in. And anyways, they show up and she's like, "Oh, I just got the food in the oven. Like it's got to braise for 3 hours." Anyways, it's a great episode. Should definitely watch it. But in that, she talks. Michael Scott talks about how she didn't want to have kids and she made him get a vasectomy. So he got the vasectomy, but then she changed her mind and said she might want to have kids. So he reversed the vasectomy. And then whenever they started trying for kids, she changed her mind again. So he got another vasectomy. And then right after he says like, well, let's have kids then, is what she says. You'd have to reverse it again. And he goes, snip, snap, snip, snap. That's exactly what I think of whenever Trump has these tariffs.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
it's like snip, snap, snip, snap.
Well,
and I don't even understand it. So it's 10% now on Mexico and Canada?
It's 10% on everybody who didn't push back. And I think the only one I think the only one remaining is China.
China. And that's 125% or something like that?
It doesn't matter. It's a whole boatload. And
okay.
I mean, I've studied tariffs since the Nixon days. Frederick Bastiat and Adam Smith wrote about tariffs. And are they good or are they bad or what are they, Well, just take the 30,000-foot view. It's government interference in pricing, and that's bad. That never, never, But that's, as a precept, that's bad because they're jacking with the markets, and the markets are determined by free trade. There are things like we don't want to ship our, we don't want to outsource the production of our nuclear missiles to China.
Sure.
And give them the plutonium and everything, right? So, but that's an excuse. Generally, if you think about it, what a tariff does is favor the producer and penalize the consumer in our country.
Right.
Because it gives producers protection against competition, and you and I and everybody else going to pay for it. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay. And no, not okay, but I mean, what's your point? And Frederick Bastiat makes a really good statement about the principles behind that, is that the benefit that tariffs do, like you can show a factory with 25,000 guys working in there and say, look, they're all going to keep their jobs. So the benefit is all concentrated in a place like that, for this consumer, producer, that producer. The harm it does, the increased cost it does, affects everybody and is not immediately visible or measurable it's not obvious because you can't show the masses of people paying $1.50 more for something. And then they say, well, it's only $1.50. Yeah, it's only $1.50 on that. It's $1.50 on that. It's $200 on that, $2,500 anyway. So it's a little bit of a hoodwink, bamboozlement, right, to put tariffs on.
Two things I wanted to say. One, I wanted to take advantage of these tariffs and see the opportunity to build a factory. And I built a factory, but now the tariffs are gone. So now I don't know. Anybody who says the argument that we're trying to increase our production and our abilities here in the U.S., well, that's awesome. I actually support that manufacturing in the U.S. I think we should manufacture overseas too, but I think that we should have more manufacturing capabilities here, especially for things like steel and aluminum.
Well, that's the security and strategic benefit argument, and I think there's truth to some of that.
There's truth to some of that, but not whenever it's there are 25% tariffs on steel from Mexico, and then nope, just kidding, 10%. You're not going to be able to sustainably, no one's going to invest millions, potentially billions of dollars into infrastructure for manufacturing when they don't know if it's actually going to last or not. You know what I mean?
Well, once again, a whole lot of people will make decisions in their best interest if allowed to do so. And their best interests are best described by them, not by somebody that's doing this to influence that. And you're right, $1 trillion or whatever's coming in could pledge to come in to build factories. And is it economically feasible? I don't know. If it's temporarily economically feasible, that could get wiped out and then it's stupid. So, I mean, it's a general concept is if the government is making decisions about who are the winners and who are the losers, that's usually bad. And there are reasons for that. Government people don't have the skill set, meaning Trump is a businessman, but the skill set of all the things that go on. They don't have the knowledge. And by that, I mean the specific market knowledge that thousands and thousands of people have about their market. The sum total of their decisions is based on the best information available to them. That's not available at government. Imagine AOC making or Bernie Sanders making the economic decisions for the country. So they don't have the skill set, they don't have the information, and they don't have the incentive, right? Because that's the thing with bureaucrats and government agencies. They can fail and there are no consequences. Maybe that's changing right now, but I'll take the Department of Education just as one I generally know about. We have performed miserably, not measurably, miserably. And miserably. Measurably miserable.
Yeah.
Since Jimmy Carter created the Department of Education. Not every year has been down. I looked that up. But on a whole, we spend a way lot more money and we get a way lot worse results. There are no consequences. None. Now, maybe that's changing because of Doge and all that. Well, there have to be consequences. And consequences can be positive too. I didn't realize that. I always think of it as negative. But they're a consequence. As a consequence, we did very well, or as a consequence of our efforts, we did very poorly. And we lost our job, right?
Yeah.
And so, as a general rule, if government is making these policies, it's bad. And if we drop all our barriers and want to buy a whole bunch of stuff from China at real cheap, I can see the point. What else can we do? Well, it turns out we do a lot of else. Yes, we've lost, Trump says we lost 95,000 factories. Well, 74% of our economy is non-tangible goods and services. Medicine, entertainment, healthcare.
What you do, what I do.
Consulting, marketing, all the software, AI. I mean, if I ask our listeners, if you don't think about everything that you've bought recently or that you want to buy. I want to buy whatever the new games are. They're not Nintendo anymore, but whatever they are. I want to buy that. I want to buy music. Well, now I don't even buy a CD. I just have a subscription.
Pay a monthly fan, monthly plan.
So, but people seem to think that's not real and that manufacturing is. And then one other thing is, and I can hear people screaming at me, but well, maybe not our listeners, but if I were having this discussion in the Wall Street Journal, there is no such thing as a deficit balance. None. There's no such thing. I sell my stuff, or I buy stuff from China. I get stuff. China gets my cash, or we'll just call it my cash. It's actually credit. In equal amounts. It's a balanced trade. I got stuff, they got my cash. Then people say, well, cash doesn't count. Cash is a deferred means to acquire stuff. That's what it is. Oh, I'm not going to do it today, but I'm going to do it at some point. I've got all this money. What they actually come over.
You mean credit? Are you saying credit instead of cash?
No, they get money. Okay.
Yeah, but you said credit is a deferred. You said cash is a deferred. You meant credit is a deferred?
No.
Cash is a deferred?
If I have cash in my pocket, it's a deferred claim on $1 worth of something from somebody. But I haven't, it doesn't become a barter economy until I go to Walmart and buy some boiled eggs. No, that's what money is.
A dollar. You're talking about what money is. I thought you were talking about I get what you're saying.
No, they get money.
Is not
they get
really
a
anything.
future
It's just
claim.
deferred. Yeah.
They get a future claim against us, which is to buy stuff or services. And what they do is they buy services. They buy stock. And when they're buying stock in the S&P 500, where a lot of Chinese money goes, it's 95%. That's 95% of the figures on the internet are made up, right? No, but it's in that realm. The Standard & Poor stock basket, the companies, is intellectual property, pharmaceuticals, or it is. So I have money. I have a claim to buy that. Well, in the meantime, I'm going to buy stock. So I bought services from you. Well, that doesn't count. Why not? because when we talk a trade deficit, the way they do it, it's imported goods and services versus exported goods and services. Money doesn't count. They only account if they actually take stuff. And that is a specious argument. I mean, it's saying, oh, okay, only barter counts. Right?
Well, a couple things, and we're definitely getting into the weeds here, but maybe people are enjoying this. One, I've heard about The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump.
Yeah, no, I haven't read
touched it.
Yeah.
Haven't read it. Someone posted this. They asked AI, please briefly explain the art of the deal for idiots who still don't understand how Trump operates, even after decades of him using the same strategy for everything. Be concise. And then AI says, the art of the deal is Donald Trump's negotiating strategy that he has used consistently for decades. Here are the key elements. 1, start with an extreme position to create room for compromise. 2, use attention-grabbing statements to control the narrative and put the other side on the defensive. 3, create a sense of urgency to pressure the other side into making concessions. 4, keep the other side guessing about your true intentions and bottom line. 5, be willing to walk away if the deal doesn't meet your standards.
Wow. Man, that's perfect. That's exactly what's going on. And I can't believe I haven't asked AI that. I've asked AI. I started about 5:30 in the morning asking AI stuff. I mean, just anything I think of, I ask it. And I haven't asked that. That is perfect.
It's literally what he's doing.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I wanted to say, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, did you hear him talk about the tariffs on China?
Well, he wants to put like 500%.
Yeah, he's
He wants
like,
to shut 'em down.
it's not enough. It's not that he wants to shut them down. He's like, it's not only that they manufacture all this stuff for us and they tariff what we do, whatever. It's that they steal all of our stuff.
Oh, yeah.
They steal
And they
the
have
IP. And they have forever. And it just ruins the companies. So anyways.
Me talking earlier about tariffs and the trade, that's the mercantilism of the 1700s. And, what Trump is doing, I mean, and I get hot and cold, just like the market does, I guess. Go down 10 million and then up 7.5 million. But he's executing that plan, which gives me great encouragement to have read that, what you read, being existing a priori, all this stuff, that's his that's his plan. And if he comes out the other end with a 0-0 free trade, freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And we can, and I think we have to allow other people. We're not going to do our airplane development in China, right? Although we probably do. I think we do. Some of the F-35 stuff is manufactured. You're going, really?
Yeah, but the materials are coming from there.
Yeah, and that's
certainly.
the other thing. It's not just. I don't want to play scared because of this, but it's not just okay. We're going to kick their butts. They need us. We buy 500 billion from them, and they buy 150 billion from us. They also have the rare earth stuff and other things. I don't know all what, but there are other things that we need from them, and that's why free trade and with some security limits needs to happen, and let people who do in the invisible hand, the self-interest of maximizing profit, being most efficient, they make the best decision. So that is looking at the tariffs from the philosophy of a tariff. It may be nothing but a hammer for Trump. He said, I'm just going to do this and jack all of you boys up. And you're going to change because I'm...
If anybody has some insider trading right now on when these tariffs are going to be changing.
Well, they're accusing him. Adam Schiff was accusing him of that. And he goes, hey, I went on before the stock market opened and said, this would be a good time to buy, undue influence. Well, Schiff needs to start that, and we'll, start an investigation into the trading timing of those guys. But anyway, neither here nor there. So.
Well, it's an interesting time. I'm sure everybody's thinking about it. We're also going to be releasing this episode well after all this is going down, so there's probably going to be more surprises. But yeah, what a weird time to be in the global economy. quick ad break to tell you a little bit about OpenPhone. If you're a contractor that has a single cell phone, you're probably inundated with text messages and phone calls, oftentimes that you can't be responsive to or that you can't answer at all. So what's the solution? You can buy another office line with Verizon or AT&T, and you can have an iPhone that is passed around from employee to employee, depending on who's on call. But what if there's a better way? What if there's a way that you can have all your phone calls recorded to go back and listen to later, transcribed with summaries so that you can get a quick glance at what happened during the phone call, and even connect it to your CRM where all your other customer information is? OpenPhone is the perfect solution because it does just that. You're able to add all the users you need to for whoever needs to have access to the lines for your company phone. And then you can also find all of the information you need at a glance with a centralized location for all phone calls and text messages with your customers. Whether it's for marketing, for sales, or for service, OpenPhone is the perfect solution for you and your team. If you're interested, we have an offer down the show notes from OpenPhone. Please click the link down the show notes, or you can see it here on your screen to be able to find more information about OpenPhone. Thanks for listening. Back to the episode. I don't even know how we're going to segue here. What did you want to ask?
Well, we'll probably make this a, what do you call it, a potpourri. I don't know if our audience uses that term or not.
No one uses potpourri anymore.
Anyway.
Just grandmas.
Oh, really?
I haven't seen potpourri in ages.
Well, I don't know why it came to my mind. But anyway, random thoughts. What I would like to do, and I think we need to devote a separate episode to this, but software.
Okay.
I mean, seriously, if people are like me, I have people at various levels of startup to mature businesses. Talked with Jeff Finney yesterday for an hour, and want to talk about a guy who's not only on top of it, he's light years ahead of everybody, and just because of who he is.
Right.
We've got that all the way back down to people who really are working with aluminum clipboards and don't keep books, right? Yellow legal pads. Mm-hmm. But there are all these areas, and I really want to bring it up another time, but all the areas you can use software, like what I've written down, like for estimating and bidding, for project management, for accounting and bookkeeping, same thing, for time tracking and payroll, for the pay for performance stuff where we use software to benefit people and incentivize them, CRM stuff, right, customer relationship management, where you, I know we use them different ways, but where you have a process flow, a workflow for leads, and then that workflow jumps over to project management and continues, right? Inventory and equipment maintenance, right?
Yeah.
Document drawings and, like cabinet makers, Mosaic and Cabinet Vision and Moralware. I mean, specialty softwares for production, doing what you do. Safety and compliance, safety tracking, OSHA. How do you? One thing I'm going to ask every listener right now is, how's your OSHA Form 300? And if you don't know what that is, you need to get on the internet and see what that is and get one, right? That means that's the first, most fundamental, basic sign of paying attention to OSHA. Yeah. There are ERP softwares that seek to do everything, right? One software that does everything from managing your customers to bidding to project management to accounts payable and accounts receivable and HR management and IT itself and leadership stuff and calendars and just like, which I don't have. Jeff has one that he wrote himself. By the way, he no longer uses Trello. It's completely gone.
Yeah, I know. He's all ERP.
Yeah. Well, he had an ERP with Trello.
Yeah, but
he's more sophisticated. Yeah, he's using in the Google world. Communication and task management. We talked about, like, how do you Asana and single source of information, Slack.
Yep.
So fleet management software. And then the last one I had written down was like camera and I don't know what we want to call it, documentation software, like camera.
Company cam.
Company cam.
Yeah.
And, okay, So I'm driving around in my pickup. I'm doing $2 million a year. I don't really have a manager. I got some foremen. Got a bookkeeper who doesn't work in my office, but and I what and I'm gonna I really do want to leave this for another show, but I want to leave it in your brain. How do I decide what to do first? How do I decide which software? And how do I learn to use it? Okay. Now
I don't think we need to leave this for another show. We can do this today.
Okay. Well, then I'll leave my other complaint. I mean, one of the things that Jeff Finney does, if our listeners remember him from way before, but he's just a fantastic guy. He's the one I was talking to yesterday.
Jeff Finney's a cabinet shop owner in Tulsa, Oklahoma, who is one of the most systemized. His objective is to be the most efficient cabinet manufacturer in the world.
That is his vision.
That's his vision.
And that's his vision. And it was when I met him 9 years ago, when he's working out 8,000 square feet. He is set up to sell his company. We need to get him back on and catch up.
We'll do it. Okay, let's move on from Jeff. Let's get to the point.
Okay.
What's the question?
Well, the thing that Jeff was doing is that he goes, I go for capacity. In other words, if I think I want a CRM to manage my customers, I want something that integrates downstream. I don't want an island of information in a CRM. Silos. But I don't want, also I get overwhelmed if you go, well, we need to pick everything today because I don't freaking know, right? So it's how to start. And I mean simple. And that simple, and I'm going to plug you again because it's what you do, but there are other people in the world. You start with somebody like Khalil, who, I mean, you can try it. There are people who do it themselves, and they love it, like Jeff. But what should I do first? Should I do a CRM first? Should I do a project management software like Jobber? That's what because, well, Jobber does a lot of stuff. Like it's going to be your bookkeeping. It's going to be your CRM. Okay, is it really? What does it communicate? Anyway, you get my point. There's all of these places, and a guy like me, I mean, I'm a coach, and mostly what I've relegated myself to do, and I'm not trying to learn the sophomores anymore. There's just 5 guys walk in here, there's 5 different project management softwares. Mm-hmm. But I do say you need a system, and it needs to be able to do this.
So you often talk about the 4 areas of business: guiding the business, getting the business, doing the business, and administering the business. But I want to talk about 4 things that I think, and that fall in line with that, but 4 things that I think that you have to do from day one as a business owner. You've got to close deals, right? You've got to execute the projects. You've got to hit your numbers on those projects, and you've got to lead your team. That's what you have to do. Different way of saying exactly what you said, but a little bit easier for people to understand sometimes in terms of what I might need software for. You don't need software for any of those things. You don't. You can go knock doors. You can have people sign a physical piece of paper. You can collect a paper check. You can show up with the materials. You can do the job with a hammer. You can look at your bank account, and you can call your guys on the phone and talk to them in face-to-face, right? You don't need software for any of those things. Does software help? Yes. It would be helpful to have an email so that you can email your customers a receipt, so that you can schedule the time of installation, whatever it is, right? We all understand that there's efficiencies gained by software, but it's not absolutely necessary. If you're not doing any revenue right now, don't buy any software. You don't need it. Maybe get a Gmail account, but it's free, right? But just go do the job. Go close deals. That's the most important thing. Without closing deals, you don't have projects to execute, you don't have numbers to hit, and you don't have a team to lead, right? So that's the first thing. Go close deals, and you don't need software to do that, right? Then once you start closing deals, you have to execute the projects. Otherwise, you're not going to be closing any more deals. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to hit your numbers. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to afford a team to lead, right? So you have to close deals, and then you have to execute the projects. Then you need to make sure you're hitting your numbers. Otherwise, you're going to go out of business, right? If you don't hit your numbers, see ya, right?
Right.
Maybe not today, but eventually you'll do terrible. Then if you can't lead your team, if you can't hire effectively, if you can't keep people effectively, if you can't help
Direct
them
them
to
and yeah.
direct them and do the project well, eventually you won't be able to close deals, you won't be able to execute projects, and you won't be able to hit your numbers, right? So we understand how all that works. What software do I start with? It's really important for you to understand where your constraints are out of those four things, right? Is it the Toyota way? What's the book? You've probably read it. Is it the Toyota way?
There's a Toyota way. There is one, the Toyota way. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, Toyota is always thinking about where the constraint is in the manufacturing process.
Right. Mm-hmm.
As a small business owner, you have to think about what your constraint is. What is our constraint today? That might be that we're not closing enough deals, right? That's typically the hardest, or
Initially.
that's usually the biggest constraint that a small business would have, is we're not hitting our numbers, or we need to grow sales, right? So you may have to work on marketing. You may have to work on getting a CRM in place. You may have to work on tracking your deals better so you can improve your conversion rate. You have to figure out what the constraint is, right? But if it's a sales constraint, you may consider getting a software to become more efficient so that it's not a constraint anymore, right?
Okay.
Then if you're having trouble executing on projects, things are falling through the cracks, we're not doing it well enough, we need better systems, we need a way of visualizing it, we need a way of keeping track of our projects. Maybe that's where a project management software would come in place and help you streamline, become more efficient, but also become more organized around executing projects. I think you get the point. Hitting your numbers, you need to track your project costs. It might be beneficial to have some sort of software for tracking costs. Leading your team, if you're not doing a good job of leading your team, maybe software can help with that. And you have some workplace communication tools that will help you to talk more frequently and to manage the team more effectively, right? Maybe it's about hiring, and so you need an applicant tracking software so you can better post jobs to different job boards and get more applicants in the door. You need better onboarding processes, or you need a benefits management system where you can track your insurance for your employees and your 401k and all that kind of stuff, right? But figuring out what your constraint is where you start.
Quick ad break to tell you about Growth Kits. This is actually my company, and you may have seen it around, but I started Growth Kits because I kept seeing contractors struggle with the same problems over and over again. They were trying to be better organized inside of their business, but kept drowning in the day-to-day operations. So whether you need a better CRM, a hiring process that actually works, or you just want to make sense of the tech stack inside of your business, we have systems that are built specifically for contractors. You can either grab our DIY guides and implement these systems yourself, or you can hire us to work with you on it and implement it for you. No massive consulting fees, no year-long commitments or monthly retainers. Just pick what you need right now and let's get it done together. Head over to growth-kits.com to see how we can help you construct your success one system at a time. That's growth-kits.com, or just click the link in the show notes. Now, back to the show.
How do you choose the software was your next question, is that right?
Yes.
So why don't you, let's actually do a real constraint and then we'll choose a software. So what's a real constraint client has where we think that software potentially could happen? And you don't have to even know that. What's a constraint?
Well, I really like the way you're approaching it, because that's how we coach forever. Look for the weakest link. Well, a constraint is tracking a pipeline of leads. Right.
Okay, why is this a constraint? Like, really explain this. Like,
well,
give me a real one, like a real client right now. Their constraint is this.
Well, I don't have any whose particular constraint is that right now, but it's a very real.
But
people are calling in, or people contact me. They send in a form on the website I paid to have set up, or they call and I didn't get the message. Anyway, basically you have people contacting you and nobody gets back to them. Nobody follows up. Right. And do you want me to say why that is? I mean,
no. I think we all understand that one. Is this? It's really important that we choose a very real constraint.
These are hard.
Yeah. So you have someone dealing with this. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and have had
all right.
Everybody kind of dealing with it at some point.
Okay. So the constraint is that we are missing out on leads. Would you say that we're not?
Yeah.
Okay?
Ultimate
Leads are falling through the
constraint is
cracks.
we're not selling enough. Why not? Well, we're not following up with our leads.
Okay. So now we ask why, right?
Right.
So, and you basically started that. We're not closing enough sales. Why? Well, we don't have enough leads. Why? Well, we have enough leads, but we're not converting the leads well enough. Okay. Why? Well, it looks like they're falling through the crack and we're really slow to engage with them. Okay. Why? Right. So you just
Right.
keep asking why. And this helps us determine what we actually need. So you gave a couple examples of people maybe calling or filling out a form. Let's choose one of those. Which one do you want to start with?
People they call you and they leave a message.
Okay. So people are calling and we're not answering the phone.
Yeah, I'm on
Okay.
the roof.
So this could be a couple of things. One, it could be a personnel problem and not a software issue, right? But maybe they're intertwined. We'll talk about that. Maybe it's literally only you answering the phone and you're also doing the job. So you need someone to answer the phone for you. So you probably need to hire someone or an answering service or something along those lines. Or something that people don't think about is not even having your leads come through your phone, having a different process that you can automate where leads come in through. Now, you want to make sure that you're tailoring the process to how customers want to engage with you and buy from you and become a lead for you. But if they're willing to schedule through a website, if they're willing to do it via email or do it through a chat, then take them through that process because you can automate it. But if they want to talk to a real person, okay, we need to probably hire someone to do that. Now, let's say that that's not the issue. Let's say that the issue is not, we actually have people that can answer the phone. The issue is that our phone system sucks. Our phone is an iPhone sitting in the office, but sometimes people are inside the shop and they're not inside the office, or they're out on the job site. And so no one answers the phone, right? Or someone puts the phone on silent or whatever it is. Okay, we need to change that process, and software can help with that. OpenPhone's a sponsor of our podcast. That's a great software for this because not only can you have your phone in the cloud where it's not on the physical iPhone or the desk phone that's in the office, it can be accessed from anyone's computer in the world, anyone's phone in the world, and ring directly to your phone. It'll also record those calls. It'll also connect directly to your CRM. And from there, you can automate a lot of processes to make the lead follow-up immediate and automated.
So how does somebody who's harried, normal business, working in the business,
Yeah.
have time to go find out what software are out there and how to choose?
Yeah. So once you've narrowed down what your real constraint is, like, man, I need a different phone system, now it becomes a lot clearer of what to research. Most business owners are fairly savvy and intuitive. They understand how to do a Google search for phone system, right? Now, what's going to happen there is you're going to get a ton of different ads and marketing about phone systems, right? But once you know exactly what the problem is, this is where it's really valuable to have a community, right? Of peers that you trust, advisors that you trust. Hey, contractors on Facebook groups, what are you doing for your phone system currently, right? Hey, Cashflow Contractor listeners, what are you currently doing for a phone system? Hey, business coach, do you know phone systems that will help us have multiple people be able to answer the phones from multiple locations at any given time with automated call recording and transcribing and connect to my CRM? And you may not know all those features, but hey, my problem is that we're missing phone calls and we're missing opportunities with leads. I want to make sure that we're getting this done right every single time. We have the staff, but we don't have the system or the tool. What do you have? So essentially, that gives you the being able to define your problem is
Right.
more than half the battle of finding the right software.
Right.
You've got to be able to define your problem. Then you want to start thinking about, overall how it applies to your tech stack. Meaning, just like a lot of the guys out there want to have, a DeWalt toolbox with DeWalt drill, DeWalt tool, just everything is DeWalt or
Yeah,
everything's
the bags and
Milwaukee, or
bits.
whatever it is, right? That's your toolbox, your tool stack. Same thing with your tech stack. You want to make sure that they all play nicely together, right? That you're not worried about changing out batteries from Milwaukee to DeWalt. I don't even know if they use the same battery or not, but that would be an issue if like I have to have a different battery for each different tool, right? Same thing. I don't want to have to worry about creating silos, or all the phone calls are an open phone and we can't get them out of there because, or they're on the iPhone and that's stuck there. We can't get it out of there at all. So you want to have a good tech stack or toolbox of software that plays nicely together and that connects to each other. These days, it's pretty easy to find softwares. Integrations are pretty easy to create through Zapier or Make or other integration providers, but a lot of them are also creating their own integrations with each other. Usually the bigger the software company, meaning I'm not going with something very specific, like you had mentioned MoreAware, we know that from Sergio. Right. That's very specific to countertop companies. They're not going to have a lot of integrations. But if you go with a bigger company like HubSpot or OpenPhone or Google, they're going to have a lot of integrations available and they're going to play a little bit nice with each other. The other nice thing to consider with that is you're going to get a lot better support and product build out of the software. Like they have a whole team dedicated to features on their software versus like the MoreAware example, they have a team dedicated to the entire platform. You're just going to get better feature updates, better UI, better user experience, goes to customer support. And you may pay more, but not necessarily. You may pay less because they have a bigger market. So it's a cheaper price.
Let me ask you a question on that kind of now. You've just found a problem. You're out there selecting software. Do you try to define, I've asked you this before, you try to define the system first and find a software that at least is very close? Or do you go and, so you're basically automating or digitizing, whatever you want to say, what you already do or most of what you do? Or do you go into it, grab a software and follow what it tells you?
Yeah. So the way that I think about this is your process intellectual property? Like if that's a yes, meaning the way that we build cabinets and not obviously people build cabinets all over the world. That's not intellectual property, but the way that we run our edge bander, the way that we, use the CNC machine and the stations that we have set up inside the shop and the layout of the shop, that's maybe our intellectual property, right? Like it's our secret sauce. It allows us to run, 15% more efficient than competitors and save costs. I don't know. If your process is intellectual property, then you might consider the system first, then the software. But running payroll is not going to be intellectual property for your business. So you should probably just let the software be the system. Does that make sense?
Well, that's pretty cut and dried, but the workflow for how you follow leads, right? Lead comes in. I always think of Kanban cards and tiles, right? That you move from contacted, appointment made, bid out, one lost, one or closed one. Something like that. Is that your process, or should you take?
It can be differentiated. We're very concierge. We always do a site visit for every single lead that we, like if you do that kind of stuff, maybe. A lot of times what I find is that when people try to make their own sales system without ever, referencing or consulting a existing sales system, they're essentially trying to reinvent the wheel. Everything out there has been sold once. And so there's probably a system out there that exists. It's worth looking into what those systems are and how they run, and at least gleaning from them. I'm not saying you have to follow them verbatim, but most sales processes are pretty structured. And if you, take 80% of it, that's great. But I see people, for example, you talked about Kanban cards. There's deal stages that you take a deal through. I'll see people get 12 stages inside of a sales process. And essentially all they've done is overcomplicated it. At the end of the day, we've got to have a new lead. We've got to talk to that lead. We've got to align on the expectations, and then we've got to get a signed contract. That's almost every company's sales process in a nutshell. Sure, there's extra stages in there where we have to do measurements and we have, all these kind of things. But at the end of the day, it's a 4-step process. don't have 12 steps. You're just overcomplicating it.
Right.
Right. So that's an example of not needing to make a system. Right. But at the same time, like, you do have to have a system, and there's softwares out there that have that. Now, don't always just take what the software has, right? Unless that's why you bought it. If you bought a software and then they end up having a system, you should at least vet it and make sure it fits for what you do. So a perfect example of this is like company Cloud Nimbus, or is it Job Nimbus? That's what it is. Not Cloud Nimbus. Job Nimbus is roofing software primarily, is how it started. And it follows the roofing sales process, which is a little bit different than most because of like insurance claims on storm and all that kind of stuff. And if you're remodeling a bathroom, you're not always doing an insurance claim. But a lot of people will buy Job Nimbus for their sales process, and they'll take it verbatim. And I don't necessarily love the way that Job Nimbus is set up. So I don't necessarily recommend just following that verbatim. Maybe do your own sales process, right? So just an example.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the jury is out. As some people are qualified to think that through, do you recommend that people get help with it, or do you think they already know how to do that?
Listen, Jeff Finney built his own ERP. It depends on who you are.
Yeah.
Like, Jeff Finney does not need me to tell him how to run a software. He can, but Jeff Finney's also smart enough to call me sometimes and say, hey, what do you think about this? Right? Even people who are capable of implementing their own ERP, Enterprise Resource Program, is that what it stands for? Essentially built out all of his software from soup to nuts for his company, is still smart enough to consult with people, right? So if you feel tech savvy and you enjoy that, and it's where you feel like you can add a lot of value to your company, go for it. But for most people, their time's better spent elsewhere. You still need to be involved in the process because you're the ultimate user. Your company is the ultimate user. You might include some of your team as well in the process. But a lot of times I see software becoming a distraction for business owners, including myself sometimes. Like right now, I'm looking for I know the right signature software that I'm trying to use for our contracts. I just don't want to pay.
Signature?
I know the correct signature software. It's called PandaDoc. But I don't want to, and for the features that we want, I don't want to pay $69 per user per month for a signature. So I'm trying to find a different one. I'm thinking about making my own. There's other great, easy ones out there. They're just not as automated. Anyways, that's I'm going to
circle us back to free trade and all that, the economy
Go
where
ahead.
we're going. And one of the things, I don't know if people have been following it, but Canada is having a real serious meltdown. I'm not talking about a depression, but Canada's gross domestic product per person is 40th out of 40 industrialized nations. There's a group of 40 and they're last. And it's about equivalent to people who live in Mississippi, which is the poorest United States. Right. And the reason for that is that they're an extraction economy. They're oil and gas and natural resources and timber. Mm-hmm. And what they do, they produce a lot of intellectual property. They have the third and the fifth best institutions in AI research, but they never protected it, right? So they lost they're buying intellectual property, but they're not selling any. And so their economy is taking a nosedive. Their per capita, the economy's taking a nosedive. What they do have and they can rebuild from and they can survive on is the extraction economy, oil and gas and timber and minerals. Yeah. And the government is trying to shut that down because of environmental concerns. So they're having a major, major problem. And people were saying that intellectual property is different than manufactured goods or an extraction economy. Somehow it's different. Well, it's not. And the reason I say it's not is you can own that intellectual property, which is a little bit different than having a patent. You can own a patent which expires. Not sure the whole scope of intellectual property. Some of it expires also. But people are always improving software. And I can think of a couple that are in the medical area because of my wife's business. But the old existing software was multiple steps, cost a lot. I'm thinking of that $69 per user. They're okay, man, we're rocking and rolling. Well, somebody else has come out with something that's $100 a month for 15 users, and it's twice as easy. And we were delayed going to it because we couldn't believe it. It was so good. And why the other company's still even in business, I've got no idea. So
that's a real problem, right? Or not a problem, a real opportunity right now is with a lot of the AI tools out there, you can build your own software. Now, understand that when you build something yourself, you are the only person responsible. You're not calling tech support to fix a bug. You're not. So that's my only, if you're not ready to do the troubleshooting, be wary. But it may be worth hiring a full-time, rather than paying $5,000 a month in software fees for your company, hire a full-time developer overseas for a couple grand a year, or sorry, a couple grand a month. And then, hey, we're developing our own software and you're going to be the one that's responsible for troubleshooting all the different stuff and rolling it out and all that kind of stuff. And then you pay for the AI tools, you pay for the hosting, service.
And that
and now
really
you
is.
own it. Now that's a big project, but that differentiates you.
Yeah. And that's would be a big leap for most of the people I think of.
Oh, for sure.
I think of my
not,
clients.
Yeah.
But I guess my point about the intellectual property getting better and cheaper and all that is that it's just like anything else. So they've got to stay up with it. They've got to be good. There are people shooting at them all the time trying to take over their market. And if you're aware, sometimes you can drive the cost out by staying tuned in and being willing to make the changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think, take kind of back to the original, was people who maybe have one software, maybe they're running one thing that hopefully at least QuickBooks or somebody is, right? That's one I always consider elemental. And then I think you would call for Jobber a project management software primarily. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Cloud Nimbus is a project management software for a specific industry. Jobber less specific. There's Service Titan, what is it? Trade. Anyway, there are a million of them. But yeah, just
Service Trade, Service Titan, there's a bunch.
Yeah. Well, the point being that using your method of define the constraint that would have the most impact if you removed it, whether it's, and it still falls in the 4 areas. I like the way you said it. Is it getting the job? Is it getting the job done? Is it communicating with my people? Is it administering and billing and doing all that?
Yeah.
Whichever one it is, and then research that and get the software and get started with it.
Yeah. Or just know exactly what your constraint is. And invariably, whenever you use software, you might be solving for one constraint. But in business, you're going to always have a constraint at some point, right? And so when you solve for one constraint, you're likely going to develop a new constraint. But also, when you implement software for a constraint, you're going to solve constraints you didn't know you had, right? So, by implementing a workplace communication tool like Slack, now our team is all on the same page, but now they're also communicating more. And now our projects are a lot more organized, and we're not having to make as many runs back to the shop because people have communicated about it.
Right.
You're solving a lot of different problems with just one software. Even though you initially got the software for one specific constraint, it should have multiple efficiencies gained.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, this has been the wildest episode we've had in a long time. I hope people have been able to follow. We've talked about software. We've talked about tariffs. if we can get Martin to mention bureaucrats in an episode, that we've got a potpourri episode going on, right?
I don't hate them as people. And I had a professor in college that said, be kind to bureaucrats because we really have not yet figured out how to measure their performance. And no, it truly, that's why it's in general and historically, a bureaucrat is measured by the boxes they check and the papers they fill out. Because they're not measuring on, hey, did we get a $2 million return on that $1 million investment? No, they measure inputs because they're not measuring outputs. And that's what makes it hard. And it also is what inputs are not what we're after. We're after the outputs.
Results.
Right? Yeah. So why do we measure
point,
inputs?
even with software. We're after results, not for a process. We're not into like, oh yeah, we set up this software. It's gonna be. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that. We put in this software and then no one uses it.
Right.
So it's not about the inputs, it's about the outputs.
Right.
You're exactly right. Okay.
So
well.
Okay. Well, next time we might be broke. The country might be
starting a factory.
Either one way or the other. They'll give us a loan. We got to find something to make.
Exactly.
Make intangible stuff.
Yeah.
We can make noise.
Make noise. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a guy I worked with in one of our companies where we built machines, and we used some Detroit diesels, and he said they're one of the most efficient machines in the world from turning diesel fuel into noise. And actually, all the noise that you hear coming out of an engine is waste.
Oh, really?
It's energy. Of course, it's energy that went to noise or heat instead of work.
Oh, interesting.
And just sticking a muffler on it's not resolving the noise. Yeah, never mind. We're getting way off track.
All right. I'll see you later, Martin.
Okay. Talk to you later, man.
All right. Bye.
You made it to the end of the episode, but before you go, if you found yourself thinking about growing your construction business while listening today, I want to share something with you. It's called our 24 Things to Hiring and Training the Perfect Executive Assistant for Your Construction Business. And it's a free guide that we've created. It's not theory, it's what we actually use to help contractors hire the perfect executive assistant. And really, we help you find ways to delegate over 50% of your current workload and get back 20 hours of your time every single week. You didn't start your construction business to just be doing admin work, to be buried in paperwork and endless admin tasks. This is the guide that shows you exactly how to find and train someone who can actually take all that weight off of your shoulders. So this is a real actionable, great PDF that has templates and processes. It's really, really great. And I want you to check it out, even just to get your feedback and how we can make it even more valuable. But I know that you're gonna love it. The link is in the show notes. Please download it. We'd love to see how much of an impact it makes on you and your business. Thanks for listening to the full episode. Check out the guide. It's free. No reason to hesitate. No reason to wait. Download it now. And before you go, I just want to ask for your gracious subscription to our podcast. So if you have 2 seconds, it means the world to us. Just subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or if you'd like our weekly newsletter delivered to your inbox whenever we release an episode, please subscribe in the show notes. Every week, we're talking about real strategies on how you can grow and build a profitable construction business that runs without you, so you can have less stress, more time, and more money. Click subscribe wherever you listen to the show, and thank you again for checking out the Cashflow Contractor. See you on the next episode.